Madden came all the way from Texas to be with us. He is a self-described conservative Republican in the Texas House of Representatives, where he's served for the past 19 years. But he's known all over the country and has received numerous national awards for his work as the chairman of the House Committee on Corrections in Texas, for his work in reforming criminal justice laws to change the, quote, lock 'em up and throw away the key approach to corrections policy. We're delighted to have him with us today so that we can add to his awards and present him with the Viche Fung Peace Award and ask him to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all. I mean, this is totally unexpected and a very nice surprise, so thank you guys. I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to ask you to hold this for a couple minutes because I've got the really hard job. I'm the Texas legislator that's here to tell Massachusetts that you ought to do what Texas did. Okay? And why? Now, that's tough after following all these great speakers. That's the tough job. But how did I get started in all this? Well, there's a guy here that's in the audience that is somewhat responsible for me getting involved in all these national speaking things that I'm doing, and that's our former head of our board at the Council of State Governments Justice Center and a former Massachusetts state representative. That's my buddy, Mike Festa. Mike, if you're still here, stand up and wave at everybody. How much I appreciate you and the chance, because they brought me up in 2006 as this Texas rep who, you know, had tried to pass a bill and had failed, and sitting in there with all these real experts, and why did they bring me? I mean, all this stuff. How did I get started in all this stuff? Well, I've been a legislator for almost 20 years. I am not a lawyer. I'm an engineer by background. I had never been on a corrections committee. I had never had anything to do with the criminal justice committees or any of the legislation. Had passed practically no bills that dealt at all with this subject. And one day in January, my speaker calls me in and says, "Jerry, you're chairman of corrections. And what do you do?" Well, as a legislator, you say, "Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really appreciate that. Great opportunity." And then I asked what was the second most important question I ever asked in my life. And I asked him, "Mr. Speaker, what do you want me to do?" And he gave me 8 words that changed my life and put me on this trail. And that's one of the reasons I'm here today in Massachusetts, because he said, "Don't build new prisons. They cost too much." Now, for those of you who are legislative leaders, business leaders, et cetera, out there, let me tell you, one of the things I challenge everybody to do is give that clear mission to someone that you have in the process. Give them a mission that is very clear and very understandable. He didn't tell me how to do it. He just told me my job was to make sure we didn't spend a lot of money. How much does prison cost? A whole lot. When I ask you a question, you can say a lot. How many people do we have in prisons? A lot. How many do we have in Texas? Even more than Massachusetts has. A lot. How many people do we have on probation? A lot. In Texas, we had 150,000 locked up. We had in prison, not just in the jails, but just in the prisons. 450,000 on probation. 80,000 roughly on parole. That's a lot of people. That's a big percentage of your population, even in Texas, when we're very big. But his statement to me reminded me of a couple of things that are slogans or things that you've probably heard. I'm originally from Iowa, and if you remember the movie that was made in Iowa about baseball called Field of Dreams, okay, what's the great statement out there in Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. Guess what? If you build a prison, you will fill them. I guarantee it. If the sheriff builds a jail, I'll bet he fills it. All right, we've had some problems in Texas now with a couple of counties really complaining to us because they don't have prisoners. They don't have anybody to put in them. And we tell them, well, you built it, guys. If you build it, you know, we're not sending you any. So, you know, if you got your own problems there. And of course, another one that we all have in Texas is don't mess with Texas. Right? It's a tough on crime state. It has always been that way. But my speaker gave me what is an engineering mission, because he gave me this, what amounts to a block diagram called prisons. A picture. That's a building. I can't build any more of those. I can't add on to those. But, oh, by the way, I got a lot of people coming. It looks like your projections match Massachusetts. You got a lot more people that everybody thinks ought to be in prison. And how do you make that difference? Okay? And what do you do? Because there's 2 choices, and I'm going to ignore the sign too. So just don't worry about them anymore. Okay. one of the things you got is you got two real choices. Because there's only three places where people come to prison from. They come directly from the judge, they come directly from violation of probation, or they come back from parole. Okay? So you have two choices in the prison. You can either open the door and let more out, or you can figure out a way to slow them down coming in. And that may have been the real innovative key moment for me, is when we started thinking along, how do you figure out, in Texas, I can't open the doors and let them out, and I'll bet you can't in Massachusetts either. I'll bet you that doesn't fly to most of your constituents out there. So what you have to do is figure out how to keep people out of the prisons who either don't need to be there, or you can do a better job with them in the community than you can with them in this place that we call prisons. The truth issue that you have on for today is absolutely critical in all this, because I'm an engineer. Remember, it's numbers. Numbers are facts. The proper utilization of facts lead to truths. And there are a lot of surprising things that are truths in our criminal justice system that will surprise a lot of people. What's happening in the crime rate in the United States? No, it's going down. It's going down. It's been going down, as Pew and the other people that are here will tell you. It's been going down for almost the last 20 years. The crime rate is dropping. Juvenile crime rate is dropping. Okay? There are things that are happening in our society that says things are happening, but it doesn't change our prison population numbers. They keep going up. Okay? Why is that? Well, you better ask yourself the question and try to figure out what that truth is of what we're really doing in the system to do that. We've got to define the problems. I mean, a lot of prisoners. That's a big problem. Who's in prison? I think you have three types of people in prison. The ones who will always be in prison, who will always be back. The ones who have done something that's really bad but will never be back. And there are the others that are in the middle, which I think you have a lot of people in your program, which I call swingers, which are in fact the people that, depending on what you do with them and how you treat them, will either be back in the prison system or won't be back. And that's where you ought to spend your money. Because in Texas, where we went after was budgets. We started on the probation side. We had some probation people that were really wonderful, came up with some great ideas, and I think that's why the reason we got involved in some of the national ones. We tried that bill, and we came up one vote short because the governor, in the end, vetoed our bill, and it was the best thing that ever happened to us, because it caused us to then go look at the entire system, the entire structure of how do people get to prison, and where do you break that cycle? And I will tell you that there's at least 5 in my projections. There's 5 places you can break it. You can break it while they're in prison with programs, things that you do with them there. If they're drug addicts, treat addiction. If they've got mental health problems, treat mental health problems. If you've got other problems, alcoholism or mental thinking problems, go work on them. Go do the right programs. If you've got a probation system, look at how you incentivize the community to keep those people that they've already put on probation, to keep them in their community. It costs you a lot less money to keep somebody on probation than it does to keep them in prison. How much does it cost to put a person in prison every day? A whole lot. Okay? A lot of money. Okay, $100+ in Massachusetts. We're cheap in Texas. Okay, runs us about $50 a day. You spend somewhere around, I think, $50,000 roughly per year on a prisoner. We spend about $20. But any way you look at it, it's a lot of money, right, that you're spending. That if you spent it elsewhere, or if you didn't have to spend it, depending on who I'm talking to, that's the lines that we'll use, will be basically that you have the right utilization of your money, because this has become something of an issue. First of all, I learned, and I started into this, I learned from my chairman of my Democratic committee, or my criminal justice committee in the Senate, who happened to be an opposite party that I was, a Democrat. We hit it off perfectly on this when it came to talking about criminal justice issues. It was a pairing that nobody thought would happen, I don't think, but yet it did. It's my buddy Senator John Whitmire and I have done a lot of national things now because of the things we did together in a very bipartisan or nonpartisan manner. Because these issues are bipartisan. These issues are nonpartisan in what you're doing. We're dealing with people and we're dealing with expenses. And both of those are critical to both political parties. So you've got a chance to be both bipartisan in your work And that's what we did. We looked at the financial side, and we said, how do you reinforce probation departments? How do you reinforce programs within your system, within your criminal justice system? How do you do things with the juveniles and in the juvenile system to get them so they're not as involved in the criminal justice system and break the pattern? How do you break that cycle? And there are lots of ways to do that. I will tell you, know your own system. And I tell legislators when I talk with them, because that's who a lot of my audience is, that there are really 4 things that you have to do. 1, you have to determine what your legislation is for your state. Figure out how you change your system, because each system is different. Each state's different in their criminal justice system. Go do what's good for your state. Make sure that you implement the program correctly. Make sure that the agencies that are out here, the department and the department heads that are here, make sure that whatever it is you intended in your legislation, that they properly implement it. If they don't, your whole thing goes to pot, goes to hell in a handbasket, I guess is the term. Do risk analysis. I'm real proud of this program when I look at risk analysis. Go analyze the risk of your people that you have in your program. Are they high risk? Are they high risk of what? Are they high risk of violent offenses, or are they high risk of repeating the same offense that got them to prison? That's different in many cases. That's very different. Are they low risk? We have a lot of people in our prison that are low-risk, nonviolent offenders. Right? That was the message we used with the governor of Texas when in 2007 he had in his budget we were going to build 3 new prisons because we had 17,700 more prisoners coming. And my speaker, remember, had said, don't build any of those new prisons. So we went to our governor the day before his State of the State speech and changed his mind so that when he got up there, he didn't say, we have to build new prisons in his address. He said, what we need to do is we need to deal with low-risk, nonviolent offenders within the community to keep them there and to reinforce our local communities and their ability to do that. That's a huge difference and a huge change of mind that we brought about at that time, and that's basically the approach we took. We went from having a projection that said 17,700 new prisoners to the fact that this last year we closed a prison. Now, don't worry about it. Texas still has 110 left, but we closed 1. That's the first time ever. And we closed 7 juvenile facilities out of 13 because we didn't need them anymore. Those are the kinds of things that you look at that are a message, and I will tell you that it's a message that is going on in a lot of states. Through the work of the Council of State Governments and the Pew Foundation and others, there are some wonderful people doing some great things out there, and I encourage you to get involved with them, okay? And I know I've got the apology sign here that my time is now definitely up. Molly has sent me the official note, but I want to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate it.